Hello and welcome to Views from the Pews. I'm your host, Charlie Colcani, and I'm the pastor of the Congregational Church in the Highlands in White Plains. Today, as my guest, I'm pleased to welcome Mark Santadonata, who's the head football coach at White Plains High School. Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
Happy
Nice to be here.
It's just great to have you here, only because I love sports and I love what you're doing. You've been very successful at White Plains in terms of at least victories, because I want to talk to you about success afterward in a different vein. But
when I took over as head coach in 1992, our first year was kind of rough, and then we won our league, and we went on to the playoffs, and we lost to the state champions.
I remember that.
But we had a great football team. We were 9-1 that year. The year after that, we were about 500. We were 5-4. And then last year again, we had a real good football team. We were 9-1 again, and we missed the playoffs by a kind of a fluke in the system, where we got knocked out of the playoffs before we even got a chance to get in. But we played very well. We went to a bowl game and won, and then we won on Thanksgiving, which is always nice. And
that rivalry goes back, I guess, for a number of decades.
Yeah, I believe it was the 25th
particular game.
Yeah, of that classic. But they've been playing on Thanksgiving for many more years than that. But the Stepanak game, that was 25 years, I believe, this year.
I didn't realize that it had been going on that long. But
Yeah.
I know that rivalry, which is a good and healthy one, is a very fine experience.
It's a great rivalry, and the coaching staff does a great job at Stepanak, and you know, we're good friends with them, and we get together and we see each other in White Plains.
Great.
And
there is a great camaraderie. I remember this particularly, having played a little ball myself, both in high school and in, in college, and I just found it to be a marvelous experience and a growing one.
Well, football, there are many team sports, but football, because there's so many people involved, and you really can't have a team without 35 guys at least.
Mm-hmm.
And you have special teams and kicking teams and punting teams, and then you need scout squads to go against each other during the week before you play the game. And it really does bring everybody together as a family. And what's nice about all athletics, I believe, is that you have all different kinds of kids from all different walks of life.
Right.
From different ethnic backgrounds, from different economic backgrounds. Some kids are doing very well in school, some kids are having some trouble in school, but they're all together playing for one goal, and that's to win that game on Saturday. And I think that's what makes it such a team sport, and we spend so much time in football, hours and hours of practice, and for that short time that you play, which is really, people don't really realize it, but you're actually only playing for 8 minutes. It's an 8-minute of actual playing time.
Yes, per quarter.
Yeah, because you're not really playing. No, for the entire game. Yeah, it's because you're only playing for 8 seconds each play.
Well, that's true.
You're either walking to the huddle or coming back from the huddle, or you know, there's all kinds of other stuff going on, timeouts, halftime, the quarter, but the actual playing time is very small, and you practice hours and hours and hours for this.
I remember those
time.
Practices, very long hours. I also curious how you would have handled my parents. My mother was always very upset, and I remember my sophomore year when I said, I'm going out for football. And she said, oh, no, you aren't, and you had to have your parents' permission to do this. And I just had a hard time convincing her, and then she was very pleased afterward. One, I didn't get hurt, and two, I survived. But how do you handle parents' concern? And I'm sure it's there. I mean, parents haven't changed that much.
There's no question about it. Some parents are a little leery about their children getting involved in football. It's presented as such a violent sport when you look at it in the pros, and a lot of times they're showing the hardest hits and the most violent plays. But football is no more violent than some of the other sports. It's a hitting sport. You're tackling and you're blocking, and it's a contact sport. But there's dangers in so many other sports. In football, you're protected. You have a helmet. You have pads. Right. You're all padded. In a game like soccer, for instance, two kids could collide and hit heads and a serious...
And they often do.
You know, and some people think, well, one sport's not as violent as the other sport, or as dangerous. I hate to say the word violent, but there's danger in all sports. And one of the things I say to the parents sometimes is, if you really think it's that violent or if that dangerous, then you better go home and keep your kids from going up and down steps, because steps are one of the leading killers of children in the United States. Kids fall down steps, or kids drown in a swimming pool.
One of the most dangerous places, I'm told, is really the bathtub.
Yeah, I can believe that.
With more accidents happening
Mhm.
and more fatalities as a result of blows to the head and you slip and that sort of thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed football, and I enjoyed the sense of discipline.
You have to, I don't mean to...
That's all right, go ahead.
The discipline part is the part that you have to have. And you have to have discipline, but you also have to make it an experience that the kids enjoy. I mean, we're dealing with high school kids.
Right.
They're out there on a voluntary basis. They want to enjoy what they're doing. They're putting in an awful lot of extra time. But there has to be the discipline. And they have to be responsible. We want to make sure our kids are doing what they're supposed to do in school, getting the best grades they possibly can. We want to make sure they're doing the right thing in the community and at home. And we actually have them sign a contract with us before the season starts of all the things we expect from them. And if they don't fulfill that contract, we bring them in, we talk to them, we say, you got to change your behavior, otherwise you're not going to be part of the program.
I think that's a marvelous thing. I'd heard that that's done in certain areas. I didn't realize that was done here in White Plains.
Yeah, and in fact, the school has a code of conduct that they give to all athletes. All athletes sign a code of conduct. Dr. Lynn Kahn came up with that concept when she came in, and I think it's a great thing. And then we made up our own contract, because there's other things involved in football, time commitments and so on. So we also made a contract with the kids, and we have the kids sign it, and they bring it home to their parents, and the parents sign it. So they know what we expect of them, and we know, the parents know too. So we get that parental pressure from one side and pressure from us on the other side to do what they're supposed to do. And that's the most important thing. Football's great, but they're going nowhere without their education. They're definitely not going to go anywhere if they're not behaving in the community. So these are the things that we stress, and I always try to tell them there's just more to life than football. Football's great. I love it. It's a great game. But getting your education, that is the most important thing that you're going to do.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I must confess that when I played ball in high school, winning was uppermost. Then I went on to college, and we never won very much. And you know, there is a grace in learning to lose and being a good loser. And it's easier to be a good winner. Oh, you can be gracious after you've won and hurrah and all of this. But it's how you take defeat, because in life it happens to all of us, and those things come up and sort of catch us unawares, and you do lose sometimes. And you can't win all the time.
That's true.
As hard as you try.
That's very true.
Now, you coach other than football. You also coach some softball, is it?
I coach girls softball at the middle school, 7th and 8th graders. I teach in the middle school. I've been there for 20 years. And I've done the softball now, geez, it must be about 15 years. And I did girls basketball for 15 years before that. And I had given it up when I got the head football job. It was just a little bit too much, because I also work in summer school.
Right.
So I keep pretty busy.
I'm sure you do.
And but football takes up an awful lot of my time.
I have been pleased to see the strides we have made in involving women in athletics. And when I came through high school and even in college, that just wasn't done. And there was no budget for girls' athletics and for women.
We have a fantastic women's program in White Plains. And I have 3 daughters who are in the White Plains schools that go to school at George Washington. And I'm very glad that we do have that kind of a program, because I'd like them to be involved in sports, and the more sports available for them, this way they can pick and choose which sports they really enjoy. And, you know, it's a problem sometimes with finances and so on to keep all these programs running, but I hope that the community, and I think they do, understand how important athletics is. I grew up in a home that athletics was made to be very important. Academics first, but athletics also. My father was an outstanding athlete, my brother, And we always combined athletics and academics to take the next step in life, which is to go on to college. And it really does help so much. You don't have to be an All-American high school football player who's going to get a full scholarship somewhere for football or any other sport to help you. We have lots of guys on our squad who maybe didn't play 2 minutes all year, but when it comes time for them to go to school, I'll do anything I can to help them get in. I'll give them a recommendation. I'll tell the admissions people what fine people they are, how hard they've worked, and a recommendation coming from a coach or a teacher is going to help. So I really believe that whether you play a lot or not, football or any other sport can help you go on to college.
That's also another aspect of life. You know, playing on the second team. We all want to be on the first team, as it were. But it's being there day after day, coming out with the same kind of enthusiasm on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and then sitting, unfortunately, on the pine.
Right.
And just waiting for that moment that you can get in.
I really relate to the kids that sit a lot.
Yeah.
And I talk to them every day. I talk to them as much as I do the starters or so-called stars on the football team, because they're so important to the team. I started in high school, but when I went to college, I sat the bench an awful lot. But I loved the game so much, and I just wanted to be a part of football that it didn't really matter to me. I kept trying to be there and be a starter. I tore up my ankles a little bit my junior, senior year, and I was always sitting bench or doing special teams. But that made me realize what these kids are going through. And I talk to them each and every day and tell them, if there's 44 of us or 35 of us, you are just as important as the star out there, because without you guys, if you guys decide to pack it in and go home, we don't have a football team. You know, we might have 12 stars or 13 stars, but you can't have a team like that. You've got to have a team. And it's wonderful to see how the kids respect each other.
I can recall my senior year in high school, we won the state championship both in football, basketball, and baseball. And this is Vermont, this isn't New York. But that was big stuff back then. And we thought we were quite good. In fact, we thought we were very good. And I remember after we had demolished one of our opponents on a Saturday, and we came in, and Tuesday, Monday's practice was very light, but Tuesday we had the second team line blocking and opening up holes for us. And I was a quarterback, and I couldn't pass, and the halfbacks couldn't run. And the coach would remind us, now what are your clippings doing for you?
That's right. And I'll tell you, it's so important to have a second team or third team that's going to go up against you and give you a tough time during the week.
Yes.
Because
on Saturday, they're not going to lay back for you.
That's so true. And some of our kids, many of our kids who didn't play much for us, are in great schools now. We have one, Matt Eichmann, for instance. He didn't play much, he hurt his knee, but he was the kind of kid that worked just so hard. And he earned the respect of all those kids on the football team. And they voted him captain even though he wasn't a starter. And this kid has gone on, and right now he's in the Naval Academy. And we're just so proud of him that he's gone on to the Naval Academy.
Marvelous story.
And it's just a great story for any kid that's saying, well, I have to be a star to be successful. And that's not true. You have to be willing to give 100% and earn the respect of everybody, coaches and team, and anything can happen to you.
Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes. I certainly have. When I played ball, we had a leather helmet, no protection up here. That's why I have a broken nose. Survived that. But now with the equipment, you're really well padded now, aren't you?
Yeah.
And scientifically done.
The equipment is very, very technologically advanced, especially when you look at the helmets.
Yeah.
Each year the helmet designs change to get more and more, much more safe. And what they're doing now is when you send things back to what we call reconditioned things, the helmets have to go back every year and they check them and they test them. And if there's anything wrong with that helmet, it gets eliminated. You just can't use it.
Right.
So The unfortunate part is it's a very expensive thing, all this equipment. It costs about $400 for each player to suit up a player. And when you have a varsity, JV, and freshman team, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But again, I really believe it's worth it, and I hope that the community feels the same way about all sports.
I sense they do, truthfully.
Yeah, we have great support in our community. It's a wonderful community, White Plains.
This is what I have sensed. I've been here about 5 years, and they're very supportive of the high school program and proud of the high school.
Right.
And I think rightly so.
Right.
That it has diversity, it has a wide perspective. Doesn't mean can't do a better job.
Right.
But I think on a whole, there is the genuine concern for quality education and for a willingness to put up the money to be able to give this to all across the board.
Yeah. And, you know, like I say, the academics always has to come first, but I think people realize that without the outlet of extracurricular activities, it doesn't have to be a sport. Any extracurricular activity, whether someone's going to be in music or the jazz band or whatever, these things are so important for the overall development of kids. There have been studies done. One study was done at Penn State University, and it was done with sports, but you could put this with any extracurricular. They did a study, and they found that if a youngster played one sport, their grade point average would go up a certain percentage. If they played 2 sports, their grade point average would go up even higher, and if they were involved in 3 sports, it would go up even higher. Now, this was on average. Some kids went down, but most of the kids did a better job when they were involved in athletics. And I believe this is true whether you're involved in athletics or any other extracurricular activity, because you budget your time more. I think you're with positive people. You're feeling better about yourself. You're working out every day. I think your mind works better. And kids just seem to succeed and excel when they're involved in athletics and putting that together with academics.
I would substantiate just everything you've said, at least out of my own experience and that of dealing with hundreds of young people over the years who have gone on and played athletics and have been involved both on a high school and a college level, as well as then rounding themselves out with the other extracurricular activities that are there. You're a better person.
Right.
You can appreciate music. I love great music, and I love sports.
It's funny, we talk about music. I had a kid that was a backup guard this year. His name was Jimmy Goldstein. And this kid came to me, and he was kind of down in the dumps, and I was, "What's the matter, Jimmy?" He wanted to go on a school trip, and we talked about it. And the other thing he was talking about, he says, "Coach, this is taking so much of my time." He says, "You know, I'm really involved in music." And I said, "Wait a minute, let's talk about this." And we sat down, and the practice was going on. We just sat on the bench. I said, "Look, Jimmy, there's a lot more than just football." I said, "I really want you to stay with football, but if we can work out a schedule that you can do your music and play football, I don't want you to give up football. And I would never want you to give up music. You probably, you know, that's what you really love." And we just got much closer after we had that conversation. I think he felt, because, you know, a lot of times you're out there and you're yelling, and then you're trying to get the practice going, and kids are like, "Well, you know, that's all he's thinking about is football." And when you do get to sit down with a kid and really get to know somebody, and this kid, it ends up he's going to the University of Maryland. He's very bright. He's getting there on his academics. And, you know, we're very proud of him, just as everybody else that goes to school that plays
There is
football.
no shortcut for the academics.
There is absolutely no shortcut for academics. And I work in the middle school, so when I start recruiting kids and talking to kids about football, the first thing I'm talking about is, look, you got to get your grades, you got to behave yourself, stay out of trouble. And I start in 6th, 7th grade talking to these kids like that. And unfortunately, some of them don't get the message. Most of them, however, are doing a pretty good job. Well, the record, you talked about our record, 9-1 and this and that. The record we're most proud of since we took over as a coaching staff in 1992 is that almost 90% of the football graduates go on to college. And that's
Really? I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah. Almost 90%.
That's amazing.
This year we were a little down. We were, I believe we were 16 out of 18. No, wait, that's not right. 13 out of 16 this year, and it was about 85%. But over the 4 years, it's almost 90%. And what I tell the kids when they come into the program, if you work hard for me and for the coaches out here on this field, when you're ready to go to school, we'll work hard for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I find probably, and I say this to the kids a lot, I'm working harder in the off season, trying to get kids in college, writing letters, sending out tapes, helping kids fill out forms or whatever, to try to get kids in school than I am during football season.
I hadn't realized or appreciated that kind of record, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah,
I graduated
we're very happy with that.
in a class from high school of 254 students, and only 20 of us went on to college. And for which I'm not necessarily proud of. And it wasn't that they couldn't go because they weren't academically prepared, is that the finances weren't.
Yeah. Well, this is another part of it that's a great thing. There's lots of ways to get aid, and you can get a football scholarship, but then you can also get all other kinds of aid just based on need. And we have a lot of kids that are in a situation where they have need. So what I'll tell the kids is, look, you're coming into the program, you don't have to go to Notre Dame, you don't have to go to Boston College, you can go to Albany State, you can go to Brockport, and you can get a real good package, financial aid package, and the football may help you get in because you're a football player. It might help a little bit if your grades are a little bit down. The football might just get you over the edge, and then a recommendation from the coaching staff. And this happens a lot. And we've got kids at New Haven, at Fairfield. We've got a young man, Jason Conrad's going to Syracuse this year. He's going to walk on and play football. But when you add up all the financial aid and grant and scholarship monies, we're talking about, over the last 4 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars that have gone to education. And we hope that football has helped in some way to get that money for these kids and get them to go on.
I'm sure it has in the long run, because they're going to have to be out there alone.
Yeah.
And some of the skills that you pick up by playing competitive sports, in terms of having to work together with others, and boy, that is necessary in the world today.
Absolutely.
When we see our society often fractured, at least here is a society committed to a goal, to trying to score a touchdown, to working together, to blocking. That's what makes a community run. That's what makes a business run. That's what makes life worthwhile.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so much to football that we try to talk about and relate to life, to the kids. Things happen. You think you've done everything right. You've worked so hard,
Right.
and then whatever. The football, I say, it bounces. It's a funny looking ball. It can bounce some funny ways
It
on you.
really does.
And sometimes you think you've done everything possible to win,
Yeah.
and you come up short. And like you said, you have to learn how to get through that. And you know, it's the effort to get to a certain point, not necessarily what the result is. And it is tough to take a loss, and we do like to win. But you learn a lot on both sides.
Do you find it difficult to motivate young people, or do they seem to respond?
Well, we're trying to get more and more kids involved with football, because that's what I'm involved with, and this is true with all the coaches. We have a tremendous coaching staff in White Plains. We get great support from our athletic director, our superintendent, the Board of Education. We're very, very blessed.
That way, yes.
That
I
way.
sense that they're
They're
working together.
We really are. And the thing is, I see a lot of kids who are wasting their time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I look in the halls, and I'm walking the halls, and I'll talk to a kid. I mean, I'll talk to every kid I could find to see if he's interested in playing football.
Mm-hmm.
Not to take him away from any other sport. I think they should play 3 sports. I think they should play the sports that they want to play. But since I'm the head football coach, that's what I do. And I want to know, what are you doing? Are you playing? And so many kids are not involved. And you see kids who are physically, good physical specimens. They're look in great shape, but they're just wasting their time. After school, what are they doing? And this is another argument I use with parents. They say, well, it's going to take a lot of time, and the grades are going to go down. I say to the mother or father, are you going to guarantee me that your son is going to be in the library for those 3 hours that he would be on the football field? I don't think so. That kid's going to go home, watch TV, go out on the street,
Street.
maybe get in trouble, hopefully not, instead of being here with a bunch of positive people where we watch them, we get them evaluated every week by their teachers to make sure they're doing okay.
You even go to that extent.
Oh
I
yeah,
hadn't
and we have
appreciated
study, and every Monday we go to study hall.
Right.
During football season, we have 2 hours of study hall. We don't practice football on Mondays. We gave up, we thought it was a good thing to show the kids that we were serious about academics, to give up 1 day of practice.
I think that's wonderful. I had
Yeah.
not appreciated that was what was
Yeah,
being done.
we do our running, but we have a running program.
Right.
And what they do is they go to study hall from 2:30 to 4:30. They come down, they do their running program. It takes about 45 minutes. We go inside, watch film, and the kids go home. But we don't step on the field. But and a lot of teachers come down and help us in the all-purpose
So it's a
room.
cooperative.
Yeah, the teachers come down on their own and help kids out in their study sessions. And I think it makes the kids realize that we're serious. We're not just giving it lip service.
No.
Oh, we want you to get good grades. We're very serious about it.
Mark, thank you for an interesting half hour.
Well, thank you.
You've been great to talk with, and I thank you for your insights into how you approach this game of football, which is really the basic game of life.
Thank you, Charlie.
And I would close with these thoughts. In life, I deal with the spiritual side, but also there is a great necessity to be physically fit. And therefore, the only way in which you can serve God, I would say, is to play the game of life fairly, squarely, and by the rules. And thank goodness for people like Coach Mark, who cares about a quality of life for all young people. God bless you, and hope you have a great season.
God bless you. Thanks.
The Romans had a saying about Christians that is just as true today. See those Christians, how they love each other. That's the way we are at the Congregational Church in the Highlands and White Plains. We love, respect, and care for each other. We share our love with our community and with those in need throughout the world. We will welcome you with this same spirit. Sunday worship with childcare and church schooler at 10 a.m. Please join us.